Imagine not being able to read the paper because your hands were shaking. Imagine not being able to read newsprint as your world faded to black. The National Federation of the Blind, Newsline, Indiana. Monthly Report. With your host, Lee Martin, and co-host, Florence Myers McSwine.
We want to welcome you to the National Federation of the Blind, Newsline, Indiana Monthly Report. It is a program that provides information regarding a specific program sponsored by the National Federation of the Blind, which is called National Federation of the Blind Newsline. Newsline is a service that is available for citizens that are blind, visually impaired, or print challenged. It is a great service. It is a service that is one of a kind where individuals can access reading newspapers, magazines, TV guide listings, weather reports, job listings, and it's a service that citizens, whether you're 12 years old or 95 years old, it's a great service for you. And we'll be talking about that service throughout the show. Today, we have two guests here from Bosma Enterprises. Welcome to the show, Kirk, and welcome to the show, James.
Thank you.
And we also have our co-host, Ms. Florence Myers McSwine. How are you doing today, Florence?
I'm doing great today.
Well, we're going to be talking about this great service which individuals can access by using their landline phone, their smartphones, their digital player from the Talking Book and Braille Library services, as well as other devices that we have, your computer, as well as another device that's called the Victor Reader Stream by HumanWare. So those are tools that you can access this service where you can just read print and read your daily publications, and we'll learn more about that through our guest. So we'll be right back on our next segment with our guest. Stay tuned.
Over the past 100 years, the faces have changed, but our mission has remained the same: to create paths to independence, to usher in opportunities for employment and equality, to replace obstacles with open doors, and to let people know it's possible to move forward, even when you can't see the way. Bosma Enterprises, navigating blindness since 1915.
If you or someone you know is visually impaired or print challenged, the National Federation of the Blind has a resource you need.
Wow, I scored a touchdown when I found sports on NFB Newsline.
I enjoy reading TV guide listings on NFB Newsline.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
We are the nation's blind. We read NFB Newsline.
It's free.
Welcome back to the National Federation of the Blind, NFB Newsline Monthly Report. We are here with our guest, and Ms. McSwine will introduce our guest once again.
And we have as our guests today, Mr. Kirk Dykeman and Mr. James Michaels from Bosma Enterprises. And how are you two this afternoon?
We're just great.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us here today,
Yes.
Lee and Florence.
Yes.
Thank you for coming. Now, Mr. Dykeman, now what is your position at Bosma Enterprises?
Yes, I'm the director at the Bosma Rehab Center, part of Bosma Enterprises here in Indianapolis. And my function, you know, as they say, the elevator speech is we work with about 50 blind or visually impaired clients per calendar year. And my job is to make their experience as good as it possibly can be while they're with us.
Awesome. And Mr. Michaels?
Okay, I am the Vice President of Program Services at BOSMA, and what I do is I oversee all of the programs. So we have the Rehabilitation Center that Kurt, he manages that program, helps people learn how to function in their daily lives again with the loss of vision. And then I also oversee the community-based instruction. That's where our teachers go out and work with people in their homes. And then I also oversee our Employment Services program. That's where we help people find jobs in the community.
Great.
Well, that's fantastic. Now, with the National Federation of the Blind, one of the services that we correlate with BOSMA Enterprises is the Newsline service, NFB Newsline. Kirk, you've been doing a great job working with us and the clients there at BOSMA with this service. Could you kind of express to our listening audience and viewing audience, how does that impact you, the service itself as a user, subscriber?
Absolutely.
How does it impact your daily life and your professional life as well?
Okay. Well, I think it's first helpful if I tell you that, or tell the audience that I'm totally blind. I have been for almost 20 years. And actually, I went through the BOSMA training program 20 years ago. So not only the current director, but I'm also a former client. And obviously Newsline came after I got my training. But yes, all of our clients are introduced to NFB Newsline. And it's very, very well received. And my personal use is probably best explained that I like to get information delivered the way I want it delivered. I try and stay away from what I refer to as drinking out of a fire hose. You know, so much information just flows at us through notifications and podcasts and things like that, that I like to be able to pick what I want to read, when I want to read it, how I want to read it, so I have choice. And NFB Newsline definitely gives me that. Some of I have some popular publications that I pay attention to daily. I always start my day with USA Today. I can remember back when I had vision and I would be on a business trip and I would get out of a hotel room and look down there, and I remember the first time I saw that multicolored newspaper laying there in front of my door. I was like, what is this? You know, it's colored. I'd never seen that before. So I've always been a huge fan of USA Today because it's so concise and everything else. So I can read the USA Today using the NFB app on my iPhone in about 12 minutes. I could never have done that at that speed before, but I can go by section, by article, and I can just swipe through the articles I don't want to listen to and get only the content that I choose to, and I can do that in about 12 minutes. The other thing that I love is I pay very close attention to the business goings-on here in Indianapolis, and I'm also a private investor, and so I read the Wall Street Journal. And a lot of times I want to know specific stories about a specific stock offering, and I can do that using the search function within the Wall Street Journal. So again, I'm getting the content that I want, how I want it. So for me, it's been a wonderful, wonderful service.
Well, I tell you, with that business framework that you have there, the Indiana Business Journal is also a great one, you know, to have.
Yep.
I really enjoy reading that as well. Now, James Michaels, you use the service. How does it impact your life?
Well, you know, I like just some of the quick kinds of things, the weather and just reading some articles here and there. I think the biggest impact for me is, well, I feel like my life has been dedicated to providing, you know, to helping people and supporting people in the blind and visually impaired community. So for us, you know, at BOSMA, we we support this program and encourage people to utilize it all the time. I asked one of my teachers this morning, we have 7 teachers who go out all around the state of Indiana and provide vision rehabilitation services to people coping with vision loss. And so what they do is they help people maintain their lives in their homes and to stay as independent as possible in their home environment. And those teachers last year served over 500 people coping with vision loss. 7 teachers all around the state served over 500 people. And I was talking to one of those teachers this morning, and I said, now, tell me about Newsline. Do you introduce that to folks very often? And he said, that's usually one of the first things I introduce to our clients. He said, because when I'm talking to somebody, and most of the time it's senior citizens. There's a very large number of senior citizens coping with vision loss, you know, and not only this state of our own, but, you know, all around the country. And he said, the things that they tell me the most is, I wish I could read again. I hate not being able to pick up a newspaper or pick up a magazine. And he said, I tell him right away, well, hey, let me show you something right now. So he pulls out his phone and he goes through Newsline and demonstrates how that works. And he said, you know, that's, you know, a wonderful, wonderful way to get our program started. So what NFB Newsline is doing for our services and for people in the blind and visually impaired community, it's huge. It's amazing. You know, when you feel like, and most of the folks we work with are people who've recently lost vision, and then they're not able to read anymore. That's very difficult for them. So being able to say, hey, we can help you read the newspaper again. We can help you go through the, you know, the TV listings, the ads on the grocery store. I mean, all those things, it makes a huge difference in their lives. So I feel like that's how it's, you know, mostly impacted.
That is so valuable statement. Now, you've been blind how long?
I've lost my vision. Well, I've been visually impaired ever since I was a young person. I was probably about the age of 5 when I was diagnosed with a condition called rod cone dystrophy. But I didn't start losing a majority of my vision until I was in my late 20s, early 30s. So before then, I had a lot of good usable vision. And so now, though, I'm at a point where if you think about a window that's 8 inches by 8 inches, and that window has smudge prints all over it, it's cloudy, it's very difficult to see through. That's about how I see now. So I use a cane, and I also have a dog guide that he took the day off today, but I do have a dog guide as well. So you know, for me, navigating through information, you know, audio format is one of the best ways that I do that.
Wow, from trials to triumphs. Florence, let's talk about a little bit about the magazines on NFB Newsline.
Okay, and there are various magazines. They are, goodness, as mentioned, there are over 61 actual magazines. Because I'm a little older than some, I particularly like AARP magazine. It's got a lot of information. It's got a lot of discounts for seniors. That's one of my favorites. And another one that I prefer is Guidepost magazine, very inspirational magazine. Yeah. It has a lot of true stories about, as you mentioned, trials to triumphs. People just like me, who basically understand that life does go on, that while trials happen, what we do is make those trials, as I call them, stumbling blocks into stepping stones.
Well, there are a number of magazines that you can access, and once again, individuals can use their landline phones.
Yes.
Yes, we talked about the app on the Apple phone. It's a great tool.
The Victor Reader Stream.
And Android, as well as the Victor Reader Stream and the digital talking player, your computer. And, you know, we'll talk a little bit more once we come back from our break and about the services with the Bosma Enterprises and the impact that it has on the National Federation of the Blind Newsline as well as the impact that it has within our community. We have over 166,000 people that are coping with vision loss in the state of Indiana. We need to reach those people so that we can get these services into their hands.
We do.
So we'll talk a little bit more about that when we come from break. So stick with us, and we'll see you soon. No pun intended, as I always say.
I'm Danny Wayne Beamer, Program Manager of the Elder Blind Program at the Will Center in Terre Haute, Indiana. I introduce the NFB Newsline to seniors in 13 southwestern counties in Indiana. I also utilize the NFB Newsline for my radio station public affairs shows. The NFB Newsline, experience it today.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
We are the nation's blind, and we read NFB Newsline.
Over the past 100 years, the faces have changed, but our mission has remained the same. To create paths to independence, to usher in opportunities for employment and equality, to replace obstacles with open doors, and to let people know it's possible to move forward, even when you can't see the way. Bosma Enterprises, navigating blindness since 1915.
Welcome back to the National Federation of the Blind Newsline Indiana Monthly Report. And we'd have two guests here today from Bosma Enterprises, and I just want to thank you guys again for the passion that you show for the service of the National Federation of the Blind Newsline, and as well as the services that you provide throughout the state. So tell us a little bit about Bosma Enterprises. What can be considered a hot topic that's going on with Bosma Enterprises that you guys would want to share?
Okay. Well, I'll get started here, Lee, and then I'll turn it over to Kurt. We at Bosma, we're a not-for-profit. Our mission is creating opportunities for people who are blind or visually impaired. And we have employment opportunities for people who are blind, as well as rehabilitation programming and employment services. So last year, just to give you an example, we served over 700 people in the state of Indiana coping with vision loss. And that's through the programs I mentioned earlier, through our center-based program, where we assist people who are interested in going back to work or higher education. We have a center with several different instructional areas. I'll let Kurt talk a little bit about that here in a bit, where we assist people in getting to that next step, whatever that might be. We also have a community-based program where we work with people in their homes and help them to be as independent as possible, whether that's things like cooking, cleaning, reading mail, reading periodicals, things of that nature. And then we have an employment services program where we help people find jobs in the community. For example, last year we had 26 people placed in 23 different jobs all around the city of Indianapolis and surrounding counties. And then we also operate a student training employment program. We have a partnership with the School for the Blind and Visually Impaired here in Indiana. And that's where we help students who are interested in learning about the world of work. We help them to have a job in the summer, and they get paid, and they learn the whole part of you got to be at work, you got to go out there and be active. So, so what we really, a lot of what we do is we encourage people to go out there and reach their highest potential.
I think there's very good services, particularly with the unemployment rate in the blind and disabled community of 70%. And even in some ethnicities, it's much higher than that. So, it plays a great role as far as, with the Indiana School for the Blind and Visually Impaired, preparing those individuals. We find that NFB Newsline would also be very essential in that particular curriculum for current events for those students. so that they can be better prepared and knowing what's going on in their society, as well as current events and as well as job search that National Federation of the Blind Newsline is one of the services on the Newsline service. So Kirk, your response.
Yeah, I want to tag on a couple things that you said there. You mentioned the 70% unemployment rate. I do want to add that over the most recent couple years that we have averaged slightly over 66% of all of our graduates from our center-based program have either gone on to higher education or have found employment. So we're very, very proud of the fact that we're double that national average of only being 30% employed. So that's impressive, we think, okay? The other thing that I want to point out is, I don't know that we mentioned this, but Florence down here, she was one of our clients a few years ago.
Yes, 3 years ago.
3 years ago, that's right, okay.
She was a star.
She was a star,
Needless
yes.
to say.
Needless to say. And so she's can tell us, you know, greater detail what her experience was while she was in the center. I think it was a very good one, if I recall right.
Yes, it was a wonderful experience at Bosma. I learned a lot of things at Bosma. Bosma actually, I believe what happens at first, it helps you get your confidence.
Yes.
It's a confidence booster, first of all. Because a lot of times when you're going through vision loss, you're trying to find your place, you're trying to find your niche. And at that point that I was in at that time, I said, okay, I want to go back to work. And I was referred to Bosma. Mm-hmm. And I got over at Bosma, and one of the things I really loved about it was I was introduced to Braille because I remember being at a period where I said, I don't need Braille. I can read. But as my vision continued to fail, I said, wow, I can't write my name. I can't read my name. And as someone, I believe you, Lee, has said, if you can't read, and if I can't read print and I can't read Braille, then that makes me illiterate. And I did not want to be labeled as illiterate.
Well, that's a great quote that I heard from President Ronald Brown, mm-hmm. and that has vibrated through me for quite some time. Mm-hmm. So also, Kirk, we talked about the, so you're saying that 66%,
mm-hmm.
that's 6 out of 10 individuals
yes.
Go on to higher education and
or find work.
Or find work.
Yes.
That's a very interesting statistic. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit more about Bosma Enterprises.
Sure. One of the things that's important to know is that I always tell people it's not rocket surgery that we do, okay, as they like to say these days. It's really finding alternate ways of doing everyday tasks just in a different way. And the best example I love sharing with folks is brushing your teeth. Let's say that you woke up tomorrow morning, you'd been in a terrible car accident, you got a bad taste in your mouth, and you need to brush your teeth. And I always ask people, well, how would you accomplish that? How would you go about that simple task? And they would talk about crawling into the bathroom, finding their toothbrush. It's always in a cup on the right-hand side. A lot of people put it on the right-hand side. I don't know why it's with the right-hand side, but a lot of people do. And the toothpaste is in a drawer, and they go to squeeze the toothpaste on the bristles, and I stop them. And I say, wait a minute. Mm-hmm. Why are you doing it that way? How's that going to work for you? Well, what do you mean? Well, it's probably going to end up in the sink, isn't it? Yeah. Or worse, it's going to end up on the floor, and you're in your bare feet, and you step on it. Oh, what a mess. So what if I tell you that there's a way that you can do that and do it correctly and never mess up 100% of the time? How is that? Well, you squeeze the toothpaste directly from the tube into your mouth. Cut out the middleman. And I'm not kidding you. Everybody goes, aha, I had no clue. And that's what I tell them is I said, you're absolutely, it's what you don't know that you don't know about all these simple solutions that we are able to teach folks so that they can cope with that vision loss. And it really comes down to being that simple.
Well, that is such a great analogy there.
Thanks.
So we're going to go ahead and wrap up this particular segment. I want to thank you both for coming on to the show and sharing with our listening audience. We also would like for you guys that are listening, if you want to learn more about Bosma Enterprises, you can go to bosma.org. Am I correct with that?
Correct.
And their number is being scrolled across the screen. You can learn more about Bosma Enterprises that way. You can also learn more about the National Federation of the Blind. That number also and website is being scrolled across the screen. So we'll be right back with our closing segment of this show. So stick with us. We'll see you shortly.
The National Federation of the Blind knows that blindness is not the characteristic that defines you or your future. Every day we raise the expectations of blind people because low expectations create obstacles between blind people and our dreams. You can live the life you want. Blindness is not what holds you back.
Welcome back to the National Federation of the Blind Newsline Indiana Monthly Report. It has been a great service today, to date, with the National Federation of the Blind Newsline. And we are so proud to have the guests that we had today with Bosma Enterprises be our guests. And once again, I want to thank you all for participating and bringing some awareness to our community about your services and about the relationship with the National Federation of the Blind and Newsline. Someone in our society today, or in a community, whether it's nationally or locally or around the world, losing their sight today, you do not have to feel as though you're all alone. There are services out here for you. One of the great organizations that I've had the opportunity to be a part of is the National Federation of the Blind. And that's one of the greatest gifts that I could offer, or Florence can offer, as members of that particular organization. So you can look at the screen or you hear it narrated and take down that information. Take down the information that you heard about Bosma Enterprises today. So we are going to wrap up our show. We hope that you come back and enjoy the show next week as we have a myriad of guests coming on. See you next week.
The National Federation of the Blind Indiana Monthly Report. For more information, go to nfb-in.org or call 317-205-9226. That's 317-205-9226. The National Federation of the Blind encourages you to live the life you want.